When you think of Nicaragua, you're probably picturing lots of volcanoes, lakes, and colourful towns. But behind all that beauty is a wild and powerful story. A story of battles, takeovers, and big changes. So how did this small Central American country navigate centuries of conflict to become what it is today? Let's break it down. It all started in 1522. A Spanish explorer named Gil González de Ávila showed up and named the place Nicaragua, after a local indigenous leader, Chief Nicarao. Then, just a year later, another explorer, Francisco Hernández de Córdoba, came and took control. And that's when Spain officially began ruling the land. But in the 1600s and 1700s, the British started getting involved, especially along Nicaragua's Caribbean coast. It wasn't until 1821 that Nicaragua became independent from Spain. Well, kind of. At first, it joined the Mexican Empire. After that, in 1823, it became part of a group called the United Provinces of Central America, along with Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. But that didn't last long, because in 1838, Nicaragua split off and became fully independent. After independence, things didn't get much easier. The country spent most of the 1800s with liberals and conservatives fighting for control. In 1860, the British finally gave up control of the Caribbean coast. But soon, the United States got involved. In 1909, the US helped a group of conservatives take over the government. From then on, the US became a powerful player in Nicaragua's politics. In fact, between 1912 and 1925, the US even had military bases in the country. That led to a rebellion. A Nicaraguan leader named Augusto Cesar Sandino fought back with his own army between 1927 and 1933. He eventually forced the US troops to leave. But after that win, Sandino was killed in 1934. That same year, a man named Anastasio Somoza Garcia took control. He and his family ruled Nicaragua for more than 40 years. His sons, Luis and Anastasio Jr., followed in his footsteps and kept power in the family. In 1961, a new group formed. They were called the Sandinistas, or FSLN, named after Sandino. They wanted to fight against the Somoza government, which put the country under a dictatorship for 43 years. And it wasn't until 1978, when a well-known leader named Pedro Joaquín Chamorro was killed, that the country had had enough. People went on strike, and the Sandinistas launched a full attack. By 1979, the Somozas were out and Daniel Ortega and the Sandinistas were in charge. But things didn't calm down. The US didn't like the Sandinistas' ideas and started supporting a new rebel group called the Contras. In 1982, the Contras began attacking from nearby Honduras. So in order to overthrow this US-backed dictatorship, the FSLN decided to have their first free and fair election in 1984, which resulted in Daniel Ortega becoming the president. But despite this, fighting still continued, and it took until the late 1980s when peace talks began. And by 1990, a big change happened. Violeta Barrios de Chamorro, whose husband was the leader killed in 1978, won the election. She ended the war and worked on fixing the economy. In 2006, Nicaragua made a trade deal with the US to help the economy grow. That same year, Daniel Ortega came back as president. In 2014, he changed the rules so he could stay in power longer, which made a lot of people upset. Then in 2018, when people protested against the government, the police and military responded with violence. So yeah, Nicaragua's history is full of big ups and downs, but understanding how it all happened helps explain what the country is like today. Next, we'll explore why Nicaragua's location and geography have played such a big role in all this drama. So you've heard the phrase land of lakes and volcanoes, right? Well, that pretty much sums up Nicaragua for you. But then again, the country is much more than just lava and water. It's also full of wild mountains, thick rainforests and beaches that, believe it or not, touch two oceans. So what exactly makes Nicaragua's geography so mind-blowing? First off, we have to look at its location. Nicaragua sits right in the heart of Central America. It's squeezed between Honduras to the north and Costa Rica to the south. And on one side, it touches the Pacific Ocean. On the other, the Caribbean Sea. That means Nicaragua has access to both coasts, which is pretty rare for a country of its size. And speaking of size, the area is about 130,000 375 square kilometers, or, in imperial measurement, is about 50,000 square miles. And just for reference, the average size of a country is over 600,000 square kilometers, or roughly around 231,000 square miles. And Nicaragua is only a quarter of that. But imagine, with such a small landmass, it features an impressive collection of natural wonders. For instance, if you head to the western side of the country, you'll find rugged mountains, deep valleys, and a chain of about 40 volcanoes, some of which are still active to this day. And among these, you'll find the highest point over at Mogoton Peak, which is up north near the Honduras border. It reaches over 6,900 feet, or 2,103 meters. But if you want to know what the most famous volcano is, it's got to be Momotombo. It towers over Lake Managua and even has its own little island nearby called Momotombito. Now, if you're interested to learn more about Nicaragua's lakes, here's what you need to know. Lake Nicaragua is the largest freshwater lake in all of Central America. It even has Ometepe Island, which is a volcanic site right in the middle of the lake. Isn't that crazy? Besides those, there are also a bunch of smaller lakes around the capital city. These include Lake Asasosca, which is where the city gets its drinking water, Lake Giloa, which is a popular spot for swimming, Lake Najapa, which is known for its healing sulfur waters, and Lake Tizcapa, which is located right in Managua. There's even an artificial lake called Lake Apenas, which helps power homes with hydroelectricity. Beyond the lakes, there are also other water features that make this country stand out. And that's rivers, which you can mostly find in the eastern part of Nicaragua. The biggest one is the Coco River. It runs almost 500 miles or over 800 kilometers along the border with Honduras. Then there's the San Juan River, which flows out of Lake Nicaragua into the Caribbean. People have actually talked about turning this area into a canal route between the oceans, kind of like the Panama Canal. And since we're already here at the eastern side of the country, let's deep dive into the terrain. In general, it's typically flatter, wetter, and covered in lush, tropical lowlands. It's also near the Caribbean coast, which means the plains here are some of the widest you'll find in Central America, up to 60 miles or 97 kilometers across. But that's not all. The coastline is also a mix of river mouths, lagoons, coral reefs, and tiny islands called cays, so there's really a lot for you nature lovers out there to discover when you visit this part of the country. And if those aren't enough, more than a third of the country is covered in trees and valuable woods like mahogany, cedar, and pine. Oh, and the animals? Nicaragua's got it all, from big cats like jaguars, pumas and ocelots, monkeys, deer and wild pigs, to birds like eagles and colourful macaws, frogs, fish and insects. But since different regions have different ecosystems, the plants and animals may vary from one area to another, and the same goes for the weather. On the Pacific side, it's warm and dry from December to April, and rainy from May to November. On average, the temperature is about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, or 27 degrees Celsius. Then on the Caribbean side, which is the eastern region, it rains a lot, about 9 months of the year. But the temperature is about the same. So if you want to get out of the humidity, I suggest heading into the northern mountains, where it gets cooler, averaging around 64 degrees Fahrenheit or 18 degrees Celsius. But here's the thing. More than being about land, geography also shapes how people live, work and travel. That's why up next we'll explore Nicaragua's economy. For now, things are holding steady, because according to the International Monetary Fund, Nicaragua's economy is expected to grow by about 4% in 2025, with a projected GDP growth of over $21 billion. That's pretty close to what it saw last year, with a 4.6% jump in 2023. So yeah, it's growing. But the real question is, can it keep it up? Well, not exactly. The IMF is warning that growth will probably slow down a bit over the next few years, landing closer to 3.5%. Why? A big reason is remittances. That's the money Nicaraguans living abroad, mostly in the US, send back home. Right now, those remittances make up more than a quarter of Nicaragua's entire economy. But as things tighten globally, those money transfers might not stay as strong. And that's not the only challenge. Private sector investment is cooling off, and a lot of working-age people are leaving the country in search of better opportunities elsewhere. So there's less money being invested and fewer people to keep the local economy moving. Then there's the political side of things. President Daniel Ortega and his wife, Rosario Murillo, who's now officially co-president, have a tight grip on power. Since a major crackdown in 2018, they've been facing heavy criticism from human rights groups and the UN for silencing opposition and limiting freedom of speech. A recent constitutional reform only added to the concern. Because of that, Nicaragua is becoming more isolated internationally, and that can raise the cost of doing business. The IMF has urged the government to clean things up, protect the court's independence, fix the pension system, boost transparency, and get better control over state-run companies. Still, the Ortegas don't look like they're going anywhere. They're expected to stay in power at least through 2028. Despite all the global pushback, they're doubling down, not backing off. So where does that leave the economy? Kind of walking a tightrope. Slowing exports and global uncertainty won't help. That's why Nicaragua has been trying to form a partnership with China. In 2023, they signed a free trade deal, and now China's calling Nicaragua a strategic partner. That means Chinese investment, especially in infrastructure, could start rolling in soon. And for an economy that needs a boost, that might be a lifeline. But if you truly want to understand the country even more, don't just look at its history, geography, or economy. You have to dive deeper into the culture of their people. And in Nicaragua, the culture is a colourful fusion of indigenous roots, Spanish influence, and African traditions. It's a blend that's alive in everything, from the rhythms of street festivals to the flavours on your plate. So let's start from the Pacific side. Here, centuries of Spanish colonization left a lasting mark, shaping the language, religion, and traditions that define much of daily life. Catholicism, in particular, plays a major role, especially when it comes to the country's holidays. Christmas and Semana Santa, or Holy Week, aren't just religious observances, they're national events where entire cities pause for days of procession, celebration, and feasting. Then in the east, right about where the Caribbean coast is, you'll find a completely different rhythm. You want to know why? It's because this region was influenced by British colonization. And the cultural contrast is striking. Instead of the Spanish language, English is widely spoken here, and Protestant churches outnumber the Catholic ones. More than that, you'll also get to meet Afro-descendant communities like the Garifuna and Creoles, as well as indigenous groups like the Miskito and Sumo. Okay, now let's talk festivals. In the colonial city of León, dances like La Gigantona and El Toro, Huaco, light up the streets with colourful costumes and booming drums. These dances started out as satirical performances mocking the Spanish elite, but over time they've become proud expressions of identity. Meanwhile, on the Caribbean coast, the Palo de Mayo festival welcomes the start of the rainy season with music, dancing and joyful chaos, all centred around a brightly decorated tree. So, as you can imagine, the festivals here can get pretty loud and lively, plus that they often stretch late into the night. Just picture it, streets full of dancers, homemade fireworks lighting up the sky, and tables overflowing with food. And speaking of food, Nicaragua's cuisine is just as colourful and flavourful as the rest of its traditions. The national dish, gallo pinto, is a mix of rice and beans fried with onion, garlic and sometimes coconut milk. You'll find that this is a staple in every home. Then on special occasions there's grilled pork or beef, and the beloved nacatamal, which is a savoury corn dough filled with pork, potatoes and spices, wrapped in a plantain leaf and steamed for hours. And if you get thirsty, coffee is the best choice there is. It's strong and rich, and you can get it in either black or mixed with milk. But if you want to try something different, sip on pinol or tiste. These are traditional corn-based drinks that have indigenous origins. Then if you're feeling festive, order a macua. This is a national cocktail made with rum and tropical fruit juice. So whether you're dancing at a street festival, sharing a homemade meal, or sipping coffee with locals, you're not just witnessing Nicaraguan culture, you're living it. And that's what makes it unforgettable. From these and more, it's clear to see that Nicaragua is a country shaped by resilience, diversity and pride. So now that you've seen a glimpse of this country, I want to hear from you. If you could experience one Nicaraguan tradition, which one would you choose? Let me know in the comments section below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, you'll love this next one.